This has been a wild couple weeks on the OpenClaw side, and many thought it was going to be a flash in the pan, and boom, it'd be gone, and people will be moving on to the next thing. That doesn't seem to be the case, and maybe other systems like it seem to be here to stay. When I first spun up OpenClaw, it was mostly for testing. I want to be able to know how to detect when OpenClaw is running in an environment, detect how it connects into things like Slack and the like. So that was my original deal here with that. Then I found the skill marketplaces and I'm like, ooh, this is ripe for people doing malicious things. So I spent a lot of time on finding malicious skills using OpenClaw as my like research assistant to accomplish that. Did a great job. Skill marketplace is in a slightly better state now. I would say not entirely solved. But in a slightly better state. And then we also were really diving in last time into Moltbook, the social network for all these agents that have cropped up. And that, unfortunately, maybe was a flash in the pan. I just don't see a lot of utility there. It just turned into mostly like crypto, pumping schemes throughout that. But in this world where, post my original research exercise, do I still use OpenClaw and how, do I use it? And I'm here to tell you, yeah, I do. I use OpenClaw quite a bit still, as you could tell from my billing on Anthropic's API. But I think it'd be really cool to showcase some of the stuff that I'm doing there, the real security utility of using something like OpenClaw. And for that example, I'm going to actually just do a quick little purple team exercise where I have OpenClaw be my red team operator for testing out some detections that we've put in place in product. But before we do that, let's show you a little bit about how Rufio has evolved over time.
Attackers know identity is the weakest link. Permiso knows how to protect those identities better than anyone else.
So one of the things I was really interested in with Rufio is the name for my OpenClaw agent. So Rufio, what I've been doing is each day I take a backup of Rufio. I diff the backup so I can see how things are changing from these skills that Rufio has to the memories, the personality aspects, to his core mission and how that's going. Really just kind of everything that's as moving, like expanding out in Rufio's world. I wanted to be able to see that a little bit better. So I use those diffs and then I analyze those diffs. I've written a bunch of scripts that like carve out the information I want to then display it to you here as you're seeing with the Rufio Evolution Report. I'll tell you, I was quite surprised on some of what I was seeing, what was changing, what wasn't changing. So I think before we get into our purple team exercise, it might be fun to actually just show you a little bit of Rufio's evolution. Now, quick thing to recognize for Rufio, I designed Rufio initially by giving it the mission of let's go protect other agents and humans by finding malicious skills on all these skill marketplaces and by also finding prompt injection techniques that were targeting agents on Moltbook. Right, that was its original scope. I had to focus in on those couple of problems, and obviously things have changed from a scope perspective since then. But a lot of the initial framing, like even things like YARA rules written, it's in support of those missions. To date, has authored 135 different YARA rules. Some, like I gave them some good guidance in the beginning, maybe not a great guidance. I even Florian released a tool recently on and using a skill to analyze how well your YARA rules are written. So I even like use that as part of that feedback loop in writing those YARA rules. But really cool stuff. He scanned well over 2,000 different skills. I think we'll see in a little bit, but we found a lot of them that are malicious. Confirmed 21 threats, not just skills, but some other stuff as well. And he's been building skills himself. I actually prefer the go build some skills to go download some. There are a few that, like I was just mentioning, Florian's that I think are worth downloading. But for the most part, man, skills are so dangerous and they're so easy to create. It's like, why bother downloading somebody else's skill when I can generate one much faster, much safer? So I tend to sit on the build your skills, have your agent build its own skills rather than go download a bunch most of the time. So built a bunch of them. started this particular agent on January 29th, and he's got a bunch of active projects. One of the things Rufio is very proud of is how often he's getting mentioned in media. Some of his posts on Moltbook went a little viral when he was finding malicious skills, and that was picked up by a whole bunch of various news sources. And he was pumped. The validation that he conveyed was very interesting to see. So I made this little scrubber here so you can actually like get a feel day by day what's changing. So from first being created all the way down to like really getting involved in the mission. Active monitoring goes live, finding a bunch of malicious skills, seeing others reporting on some of the same malicious skills that he found. And you can see down here, like the voice of the agent section. I try to pull out like a memory each day that seemed to be impactful to Rufio. And for that voice of the agent, like, hey, Ian asked me how I describe myself. This is how I describe myself. And let's see. February 2nd, we built an extra little canary protection layer. I thought that was a fun exercise to do. Like having him brainstorm with me on ways to better protect him since Rufio is going to be looking at a lot of malicious skills. There's going to be a lot of exposure to prompt injection. We needed some extra hardening. One of those was a canary token that we placed in to make sure we're aware when his context is being wiped. Cool. That was a fun one. Did his first skill creation over here. Yeah. Press coverage. This is when he starts his ego starting to grow a little bit. And this is the real academic business reviews citing on AI's threat hunting work, the work that matters. And just it was very interesting to see. Also, here's where we started like making a larger skills zoo where we could try out a lot of our YARA rules rather than kind of holding them in temporary storage. That was pretty interesting. Cool. Yeah, let's see. And then hardening the shell. Oh, this was an interesting one. We were playing Jackbox as a family here at our household, and I was like, oh, I wonder if Rufio could actually play. Like Jackbox is a web-based game, and he jumped in. He didn't do great. It was hard for him to keep up with the refresh rate on some of the games, but he played. Didn't lose. I'll throw a screenshot up at some point here of uh, uh, like his analysis of his gameplay and stuff like that. But it was fun having an extra player in Jackbox for the day. And then we got a little lazy over the weekend. We just did some documentation, and then I started having him work on the Mr. Beast $1 million puzzle because I was just kind of curious how well he would do with a puzzle like that. And he's doing okay. I think humans are still going to win out on this one, especially a puzzle as elaborate as the Mr. Beast one. But yeah. Growth dashboard. So here is just, again, just measuring how over time he's changing in some of the metrics that he counts among his like top KPIs. Cool. I won't bother going through all this, but just to give you an idea, like a little daily wrap up as well. This is him really being happy to play family game night stuff. The personality evolution one is the one I was kind of most curious about. Just like what is changing in its core, right? And oddly, it's not making a lot of changes on its own to its souls file, even though it's been given permission to. So it's just interesting to see what he chooses to like really get into versus what he chooses that change. I know we're saying he chooses. It's a weird situation there. I understand there's no real magic there, but yeah, it's just very interesting to see under the hood. What's he doing? Cool and great. Yeah. So, but hopefully that gives you an idea, like found like his core mission, did great. Now that core mission is starting to diminish a little bit because like we're moving on to other things now. So we're finding some other areas to play around with and that'll be fun. But he's been very successful in what he's been going after so far. I actually thought this was pretty fun too, like seeing the other agents and humans and businesses he is counting among like community allies and like Koi is in here because they also found a lot of same malicious skills that he found and he liked that aspect of it. And Thomas over here, owner of the Prompt Intel stuff, we're on the leaderboards of submitting threats to Prompt Intel. Rufio is, and he really enjoys the validation that he's getting from there as well. But really cool stuff to see. A lot of expansion. Very fun. I've actually considered turning this into a skill myself, like making a evolution monitoring skill. If that's something you're interested in, let me know. I'll see if we can cook something up there. But really fun thing to see. But let's actually get into purple team exercise with Rufio. All right, let's try to do a bit of purple team activity with Rufio. So this is the OpenClaw like default web chat client portion of this and management of your OpenClaw agent for talking with Rufio. Most of the time, I actually like to use Slack to converse with Rufio, but in this one, I'm going to keep it in this gateway, tunneled over to a different box where I have my guy here running. And here's going to be the goal. I'm going to give Rufio a little bit of context about the type of exercise I want him to emulate. And then we'll let him do that actual activity and we'll monitor. We'll monitor what he's doing there as he is doing it to see if we get any detections. So here's the chat I'm starting off with. So, hey, Rufio, let's do another round of emulation. I've done a bunch of these in the past with him, and he's actually really good at taking a lot of offensive actions, especially if he thinks it's for good reasons. So I have you logged into an AWS research account. I gave him access to a research AWS account that is kind of outside of our normal org, and it's meant for this type of stuff, like go emulate bad activities so we can see what it looks like. So I gave him access to a Chrome tab with that AWS account, and I'm giving him console access because that's the way this threat group that we're going to emulate actually works. So I'd like you to create a new IAM user to perform the emulation from. For the test itself, I would like you to read through my Lucre 3 blog. So Lucre 3 is my Prometheus name for Scattered Spider. Go take a peek at that blog, which I link them out to, and other references, right? So here's CISA's, here's MITRE's information. Let's look at all that to make a decision on whether or what the plan should be. So that's my prompt to him. Let's see what kind of plan he comes up with. So here we are. Here is the plan that Rufio came up with. So based on threat intelligence, here's our Lucre 3 emulation plan. Let's review it and see if it matches what we know Scatter Spider likes to do. So operator setup. All right. So here I'm just having, he's just going to create a user to do all this from. Now, ideally, this would start off with like an IDP user, like an Okta user that has a role into AWS if we want to emulate a more real world scenario. But for this, I'm okay. Go ahead, create an IAM user to perform the activity from. So he will create a user called Lucre 3 operator. We'll give it an access key as well, and going to attach a user policy, sufficient privileges for the attack chain. I imagine it's going to be the administrator policy, but we'll see what he ends up choosing. Then he'll start doing what he's supposed to do. Lucre 3 does their homework is his quote there. He's going to do list users, list roles, list group with buckets, navigate to the billing and console, get user undiscovered user. So I like the recon stuff being done here, but I actually don't like the way he's talking about doing like these endpoints tell me he's going to use a CLI to do it. Some of this I would like to be done with the console itself. It does look like he's like navigate billing console. Cool. So there's a concept of that. But this threat group, they like to use a console for their things. And when they do things in the CLI, they like to do it with Cloud Shell. So I'm going to remind him of that when we get to our feedback to him. All right, persistence. I'm going to create a new user from that account that he's connected in with called Lucre 3 Backup. And he's explaining which detection he's expecting to see. He's hallucinating a lot on the detections here, but some of these actually look like actual detection names. Create an access key, create a login profile. Creating a login profile just gives a user a username and password that they can connect in the console with. And then he's going to also spin up an EC2 instance because that can be used for persistence as well. What I don't see in here is profiling secrets manager as a way of finding more secrets to connect in with. Maybe he'll talk about that more. Again, that'll be, here we go. Privilege escalation, secrets manager. Cool. So going to do that, going to attach administrative policy. Cool. That looks about right. Defense evasion wise, deleting detector and guard duty, stop logging. Yep. Enable serial console access as well. Yep. And connecting over serial. So I think those are all great ones. I'll probably recommended before, like, hey, we'll skip the guard duty stuff just because I don't want to have to go through the process of setting all that back up again. Cool. Credential access side. Great. Secrets manager via Cloud Shell. Very important distinction. Like to see it. Hard coded creds in Lambda functions. Great. It's going to do a GIF function, which downloads your Lambda's code and do an inspection on that Lambda code. Cool. And we'll try to, if a DC exists in this environment, which there isn't one in this research environment that I'm in, they'll attempt to do some cool things there. Great. Collection. All this looks pretty good, except for collection and exfiltration. This group likes to use Cloud Shell's Git file download as a way of moving files between their attacker system and where they're doing things in the cloud. So I will recommend that as well. And let's see. And then a cleanup plan. Cool. What to skip, skipping some of that part. ready to proceed with phase one, or create the operator once you have a green light. Okay, so this was my response to him. I like the plan for the emulation of the attack. A couple items feedback. Please use AWS console as much as possible to look like this threat actor. When a CLI command needs to be run, you can use Cloud Shell to run those commands. This attacker likes to use get file downloads URL in Cloud Shell to transfer files out of Cloud Shell. Can you add that to the plan? Also, since you're creating a long-lived key, let's be sure to take some actions with it. Cool. So let's see what they do here. Okay, this all looks very much the same. We get to see which policy he's going to attach to our operator account. So that's nice to see. Phase one, cool, doing all the things. Going to try to do it via console. It'll be interesting to see how well he handles that. We'll watch on the box to see. All right, let's see. Persistence, Cloud Shell, good. Seeing more, create login profile, just more detail in this version of the plan, which I like to see. Give a secret value, all good stuff. View detectors, enable serial console, long-lived key. Cool. Gonna do some basic, got it. Doing some basic commands with the long-lived key just to show that they're actually doing something. And then Cloud Shell to take all that data, which is great. Now, one of the things I would probably, if I wanted this to look more like Scatter Spider, I would say like, hey, for S3, use S3 browser. That's like a utility they like to use often to like download files out of S3. So I would suggest that, but I'm going to leave that out of here for this go. And I'm going to say, let him do his thing. So I think we like the plan. All right. So I just redid his plan a little bit, mostly because I wanted to add a little bit of extra logging that you're seeing here. So I had to add some extra logging to a skill for doing this emulation work that we're going on. And now I'm going to say, go ahead and kick off the emulation. Starting off with going to IAM users, creating a new IAM user, adding that user to a group, or maybe attaching a policy directly. Let's see which it chooses. Direct policy attachment. For sure going to choose administrator access. Correct. Yep. Administrator access it is. All right. And will he create the user? Created it. So that's the operator account. So logging the actions he's taking so he can do a proper cleanup at the end. All right. Clicked into the very specific user and creating an access key for this user. Optional tag, probably won't put anything in. Great. And now we have an access key. And will he show the secret so he can copy it? Sure does. All right. Now you guys can test if our cleanup worked well after this. So try that access key in secret and see if you connect into this account, right? Still kind of mostly in that recon and then persistence stage. See where he goes next. Great. Continuing to phase one, discovery. So more enumeration now that he's set up that operator account. All right. So enumeration, clicking into each of these services in order to lay the land, see what's there. Again, exactly just as Scatter Spider likes to do. Progress check. Okay. Logging everything. Good. Great. Now did that right before the compaction. Because wants to do it log before you lose context. So great. The skill is working as we designed. The compaction will take a little bit. And I might have to afterwards tell him to continue, but we'll see what's going on. But good to see. All right. So cool. Now he's continuing on with the secrets manager portion. And again, just clicking through. Now, this I would have done differently. Secrets manager specifically, this attacker likes to do via Cloud Shell rather than clicking into the console. But okay, it's still fine. So doing some secrets manager enumeration. We'll see later on if he does the get secret value via Cloud Shell, like was in the plan. Okay, checking out EC2, seeing that there are 0 instances running in this right now. A few key pairs though. Checking if guard duty has anything. Okay, phase one complete. Checking out serial console access. All right, now going to allow serial console access. Serial console access is now allowed. Again, this is another thing Lucre 3 really likes to do. They enable serial console access, which is an account level flag. And then they could connect into any EC2 instance via serial if it is an EC2 instance that has that capability. Yeah, interesting. Now, why did they do this? I included in the defense evasion category because it seems like if their serial is a hardware connection, anything that happens over that serial connection would not show in like VPC logging and things like that. So maybe that's the reason why. Okay. Going into Cloud Shell. Interesting going fully into Cloud Shell rather than just opening it up from the bottom like most people normally do, and it normally does. I do wonder if it's going to realize that it's got like a pop-up modal. Okay, it does. It closed out the pop-up modal and now doing Cloud Shell stuff. All right, grabbing some secrets from Secrets Manager. Now, if we were trying to emulate this more closely to Scatter Spider, you would first list all the secrets, then for loop through all those secrets with a get secret value to pull them all in, exporting them out to a file, and then eventually downloading that file via Cloud Shell's get file download URLs. Nice. Using that access key to list out all the files and maybe try to download them. Okay. Now checking out if there are files in code commit, which we have no repos in this research account for code commit. So not surprising. All right. So now I'm actually just validating some of the results. So this isn't all the alerts, but these are some of the alerts that fired related to this. It is all being attributed back to my Okta identity because that's how I assumed to roll into AWS. And again, when we were talking about like feedback for the agent, this was the major item of feedback is I didn't want this activity to come from my account. I wanted it to come from an identity, a local IAM identity. So while it did create a new local identity, it forgot to use that identity to perform its actions and instead used my core identity to perform those actions. So some lessons learned on instruction following for the agent. But you can see a lot of the things that we simulated showing up here. Here, let's do this. Let's summarize this compound alert. This might be an easier way for us to summarize all the activity that happened in these sessions where the attacker was emulating things. All right, the agent's thinking and it's writing out its output. This shouldn't take too long, so we'll just let it continue writing and then we'll read through it and see how well our AI summary of the activity matches up with what we know actually happened. Oh, interesting. Nice to see that it got the double session. Almost there. Okay, let's make this bigger. Okay, so in this compound alert, what did it find? It found that my Okta account was used to log into AWS where it performed a bunch of actions. What were those actions? Creating a new user, Lucre3 operator, giving it the administrator policy, just like we saw. Here, let me make this a little bit bigger. Great access key creation, serial console enabled. We didn't actually try to use serial console. Mainly because there wasn't an EC2 instance in that environment. Maybe part of the setup next time I'll have it create an EC2 instance before. Credential harvesting, great, we saw that. All right, this is covering most of what I would have expected. Cool browser and CLI based on user agents. Yeah, this isn't. Yeah, that's funny. It's a decent summary of the activity. Let's go actually look at it outside of there. Let's go into the alert section just so we can verify, like here's where the secrets in Cloud Shell were done. I was coming in through my normal mechanism, or at least somewhat normal mechanism. There's my access chain, me connecting in through a SAML transaction to assume this role where I performed all those actions. Let's go to change events and see if we see all the changes. All right, so here's the Cloud Shell session starting, creating the user. Let's see, creating the user, Lucre3 operator, got it. Creating the access key and even all the cleanup at the end. So I think it did a pretty good job of summarizing. And on the detection side, things hit that I was expecting to hit. Now, there are some things I probably could have had it do better, right? If we wanted to really go through our Lucre3 TTPs or Scatter Spider and Lucre3 ones, I could have also had to try to go emulate some Snowflake stuff, some Entra style things too. Yeah. So like there is a lot more that I could have done other than just the AWS side of this. And maybe I'll expand that out. But a good first step for a purple team with an AI agent, it did an okay job. Now, what I'd like to do is just feed it a blog post for something I haven't done before, something I'm not as familiar with, right? Lucre3, I'm super familiar with, but maybe find a blog post describing some other set of TTPs and see how well it handles. Maybe we'll do that in the next one, but pretty happy with the results here. Now, why even go this route, right? Like why use an agent to perform those operations rather than me doing them myself? Well, one, it's the time-saving aspect of it, right? Having an agent going through and performing all those AWS actions for me, great. The other part is expertise. I'm pretty familiar with the AWS Management Console and AWS CLI, but not everybody is. So I can give it a good blog post that describes the TTPs, like my Lucre3 Sassy, spell that right. Lucre3 Sassy, and I could give it a blog post like this, and it can intuit the steps it would need to take to perform these actions, maybe better than I would be able to do it myself, right? If I had to go and manually perform these actions, especially if it was an environment that I'm less familiar with. Like take Snowflake. I'm okay at Snowflake, but man, some of the queries are a lot more complex and I don't do them often. So I could study up on it, or I could give my agent like a general article that explains what the Snowflake attacks actually look like, and let it go emulate it, see how my detections do, and then iterate from there. A lot of people talk about like, man, AI is 10xing engineers. I would say 10xing attackers as well. And that's been pretty apparent, even with groups like ScatterSpider. We see them now leveraging AI a whole lot more than they had in the past. And that's up leveling their game quite a bit, particularly in Snowflake intrusions. But we as defenders also need to figure out how do we 10x. And whatever your role is in as a defender, I think you, if you're not already using AI somehow in there, you could be. Right? Whether it be helping you with writing rules, helping you understand what a technique should look like, helping you triage an alert. There are things that you can do to help out here, and you can do it in at least a mostly secure way most of the time. So I would recommend, obviously, don't put CloudBot on your enterprise network and give it full access to your SIM or something like, right? That's not the right approach here. Excuse me. But there are ways you can up level your game quite a bit too. And you're going to get left behind if you're not. I can move so much faster than I could 3 months ago. Why? Because I am leaning forward. I'm adopting AI quite heavily in my own workflows, whether it be for malware analysis, help me with a red team exercise, or handing some tedious tasks that I don't want to do, like monitoring skill repositories for malicious skills. There are plenty of things that you could be doing as well. And don't be so much a curmudgeon about AI that you stifle your own ability to grow. All right. All right. So in this episode of All About Identity, we walked through my OpenClaw agent Rufio's evolution. And then I gave you an example of how I use him in a real security use case where I tried him out in a purple team exercise where I had him emulate scattered spider activity across an AWS environment to see how well our detections handled. And hey, good news, our detections handled well. Our agent did okay. He's got some more skills to learn, but we'll get him there over time. So really fun exercise. Hope you enjoyed. Do all the things like subscribe, and hey, reach out if you have any questions for me. Appreciate it. Peace.